Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at My Expat Taxes. For my fellow Americans out there, we all know tax season is upon us, and for anyone who's ever had the pleasure of dealing with multiple tax agencies in multiple countries, you know this can be a challenging experience. That's why when it comes to dealing with anything tax-related abroad, I always recommend hiring a pro to help you navigate this unknown space. In my experience, this not only saves you time and spares you from the unnecessary headaches, it also has literally saved me thousands of dollars in taxes over the years. So I am super excited to introduce you to My Expat Taxes, a true pro in this space that focuses 100% on U.S. expat taxes. Whether you're filing for 2023, catching up on back taxes, predicting a future tax obligation for a future move abroad, or just looking for some guidance, My Expat Taxes has your back with speedy and affordable online filing options and real human accountants to assist you as needed. Join the more than 16,000 other Americans living abroad who have used their services by visiting myexpattaxes.com via the link in the show notes. My guest today is an incredibly inspiring and interesting person. Her name is Lorraine Charles, and we had an awesome time talking about her experience, not just as an expat. She's British, currently living in the UAE and United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi, but also her experience living in Asia and other countries around the Middle East. We talk a good bit about Oman and especially about her project called the Nomal Project, which is helping refugees find suitable work via the remote work phenomenon. So she is working remotely from the UAE, has fallen in love with the Middle East, and really we dive deep into what she sees as the special pieces to the pie of this part of the world and how she is hoping remote work will change the lives of millions of people who are just seeking. So much fun talking with her about her experiences around the world and how you can use this information to parlay it into a future in the Middle East if that's a place you want to live, or if you just want to take a peek inside at life in this part of the world, then she's the right person to shed some light on it for you. Please help me in welcoming Lorraine to About Abroad. Lorraine, welcome to About Abroad. How are you doing today?
Great. I'm really happy to be here.
It's always so fun when we get a chance to catch up. It's been a little while, but I'm really excited to have you on the show today. I think your story is going to be really interesting for the people that listen to this show, and we'll be talking about some things that I have not covered with anybody else before. So new information for me, new information for the listeners. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's go.
Great. So I want to just get started with a little bit of background information. First of all, tell everybody where you're currently talking to us from and sort of what your current role and general background information is from where you are right now.
Yes. So I live in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. I've lived here since 2008. It's quite a while. And I work remotely, consultant in sort of development projects, education, development, but I also have my own organization which supports refugees to work remotely. So really living the life that I'm promoting for refugees, working remotely myself. So my initial aim in life is to when I leave here to go wherever my next place will be, I want to be, my work to be fully remote, and I'm getting there. I do have a few things, physical things that I do where I live now, but I'm slowly getting it so all of my work is remote. Yeah. And that's the aim, so that I can live anywhere.
Remote work is really at the center of your life, more so than for most people who even are full-time remote workers. You literally live and sleep and breathe it, I think.
Yeah, and promote it for everyone, for refugees, as a way out, as a way for economic development.
Yeah, it's often one of the overlooked aspects of the benefit of remote work. I think a lot of people think remote work, they picture like, like, oh, I can go live on the beach in Thailand and work whenever
Exactly.
I want. But really there's like, a lot of quote unquote like real people doing real work and helping others and seeing it as a means to even the income wealth disparities in the world and
Yes.
bring a livelihood to corners of the earth that otherwise would not have it.
And that's exactly how I see it. I'm sort of creating a way for people who have the ability but not the opportunity where they live. So there aren't any jobs where they live, so bring the jobs to them. Get the private sector globally to give them jobs where they are. So again, we're talking about migration, and so some people migrate because they have no choice. There are no jobs where they live. So this is giving people the choice. If they want to migrate, let them move because this is a choice. They really want to do it, not because they have to do it to live. So I feel remote work gives people that opportunity. Not only does it allow us to live anywhere, it allows us to stay where we are if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, that's it, right? And that can be a rural area or a small island or a big city or another
Yeah,
country or your hometown or whatever. It
exactly.
just bringing that opportunity to your doorstep and saying you don't have to move to London or Berlin or New
Exactly.
York to get a good job.
Yeah, exactly, completely. And that's what I'm trying to do. But not only trying to do, but trying to promote that idea to, I mean, obviously, the work that you do, I'm preaching to the converted, but there's still a lot of organizations that are really reluctant to hire anyone remotely because they feel that face time means productivity time. And I'm sort of trying to break that stereotype, to change that narrative
Oh
and,
yeah, you
and
and I
sell
are
it.
definitely speaking the same language there.
Yeah, we are. So for sure, for sure.
Well, that's so that project, the one that we're talking about specifically, because I'm sure some people listening are unfamiliar with it, is the Namal project, which people can check out. I'll put the link in our show notes so people that are interested in learning more about that can find it. But that's just an amazing. Is it correct to say philanthropic
Yeah, we're a social
initiative at this
enterprise.
point?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
social enterprise still, but just doing amazing things. And I think it's not where we'll spend all our time today, but I think it's worth mentioning a little bit more about that because it is doing super important work. This is sort of separate from your individual life, but the work that you're doing really touches on a lot of what this show is about, and that's bringing opportunities and choice to people and
Yeah,
opening up those opportunities. So is it you're also partnered with Cambridge? You're partnered with
yeah,
MIT.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, it's come so far.
it has, and we've known each other from the beginning, Chase.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Cambridge is our, would sort of partner with them. And again, it's new, so we're sort of working on how it looks, what it's going to look like, and on how it will move forward. But it's going to be a way for us to get more recognition, for us to be, you know, more in the limelight, to keep on spreading the word. With
Yeah.
MIT, they're one of our partners. We sort of collaborate, working with the same learners. So they have a program that teaches refugees technical skills. They've got a certificate in data and computer science. We do the soft skills for remote work, and again, create this holistic program to give them the skills they need to work remotely, to navigate the space, and also they will link them up to jobs. And these are really highly skilled, like talented. I can't tell you how impressed I am with them, talented individuals. And any company will be lucky just to have someone like that working for them.
Yeah. And when you say refugees, how would you define the word refugee in this sense geographically and
Yeah.
sort of a stereotypical background?
Well, this is the amazing thing about this particular project, the MIT project, because they're from all over the world. So,
Wow.
50 individuals, 20 countries. So obviously a refugee is someone who's had to leave their home for political reasons, because of conflict. I guess Syrian crisis is the one that we know the best at the moment, but there's also the Rohingyas. There's lots of African refugees. Venezuela. So there's a lot of refugee crises in the world. Venezuela, I guess Venezuela, Syria being the two biggest ones now. So on the program, we have Syrians, we have Venezuelans, we have Palestinians, we have Burundi. Oh gosh, I can't remember. But we also have 70% refugees, 30% from the host community. But the host communities are sort of countries which are, as most refugees live in developing countries. countries that host refugees. So Colombians, we have Lebanese, we have Jordanians, because these are the big refugee hosted countries. So individuals who are nationals of those countries as well.
And so the idea is to bring these people who otherwise are really struggling to find respectable paying jobs. They have skills, and get them the refined skills that they need to work for these tech companies and other companies that will embrace remote work and hiring people from wherever.
Exactly. And these guys are highly talented, but they just lack the opportunity. And if it weren't for their situation, they would be working at Microsoft, they would be working at these big companies, they would be starting companies themselves. But because of the unfortunate situation, they've had to flee their country. And this is how we support them, by giving them the opportunity which they would have had if the country hadn't fallen into a crisis.
Yeah, it's the lottery of life. Just ends up not blessing some people, and it's a shame that they don't get to experience all the opportunities that people from other parts of the world do. And then so this project is really bringing them those opportunities and opening up what remote work can offer to them.
And I feel really lucky that I come from an upper middle class family. I was able to travel. I have good education. I don't have to think about yes, it's not easy, what I'm doing, I'm sort of taking the difficult path of having my own organization. So it's not easy, but I'm lucky that I have the social capital to help me navigate this space and live where I am. And, in a year and a half, we'll leave, my son and I will leave here and we'll go back to Europe, where my oldest son is now. And, I have contacts, I have connections. So for me, I feel lucky that I'm able to navigate this space.
Yeah.
And when I came here, still I was able to navigate this space because I had the skills and the education for me to get a job here when I first came. But not everyone has that opportunity, and I'm lucky. I feel lucky because of that, and I want to help others.
Yeah, you're one of the special ones that will not just take that lottery ticket and run with it. You want to reinvest it in the world, which is an incredible thing, and that's why I've always been attracted to the project that you're working on. So. Namal is the name. It's NAAMAL, correct? .org. Yeah, perfect. We'll put that in the show notes again so people can check out and learn more. We could probably spend just hours just talking about that. But let's. You mentioned something else that just there that I thought was interesting. So, what was the push pull factor for you here? Was coming to Abu Dhabi and the UAE part of starting the Namal project, or was it the other way around, or was it totally disconnected? What sort of brought you there, and then what made you stay?
So I guess I've been in the Middle East a long time. So I first came to the Middle East in 2004 to Oman. I lived in Oman for 4 years, which was beautiful and I loved. Before Oman, I lived in Taiwan. And when I left Taiwan, I loved Asia. I fell in love with Asia, Chinese culture. I loved it. And I thought I would return. I thought I'd live in the Middle East for a year, maybe 2, and then I'd go back to Asia. But I sort of got addicted to the Middle East, and I never left. And, we traveled around when the kids were little, we traveled around the Middle East quite a lot. I've been to Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, lots of times. And, it's easy to travel to Asia from here. And I just became interested by the Middle East and, fascinated by the culture, the people. I love the people. And that's sort of what's kept me here. There's something about it which sort of gets under your skin. I mean, and I feel lucky that I've lived in Oman, because Oman is real Arabia. It's sort of the Lawrence of Arabia. You imagine, when you see the films, that was Oman. It's beautiful. Stunning. The UAE is different. It's sort of, it's much more modern. When you look around, you don't often recognize you're in an Arab country, but it is still obvious. I just like, I like challenges, and I think that's what keeps me here, because it is a challenge, especially as a single parent. It's a challenge being here, and I guess I've never been afraid of taking those type of risks in terms of moving somewhere. So I was thinking, as I said, I'm hopefully be moving back close to my son in a year, either either in 6 months or 18 months, who knows?
Where is back, by the way? Is that
Well,
London?
not back. Well, my youngest son is living in London.
Mm-hmm.
My older son. My younger one's with me here. I don't know. I'm not sure where we'll go, but closer to where he is. So probably not London, but
Yeah.
I want to be closer to him. Have us close together. So whatever that looks like, yes, it's it's to be decided. It's a work in progress, and that's why I'm sort of working my way to make myself completely portable, for lack of a better word. I can take my work wherever I go. But I've never been afraid of going to new places and just thinking and getting there. When I moved to Taiwan, I spoke no Chinese, and I remember my first day of work. I got to I was teaching, got to the school in the daytime, got the bus, and then got the bus back at night. And the places look completely different in the day and the night, as you know.
Yeah.
Especially in a different language, and Chinese is completely different. And I remember getting on the bus and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not sure if I can find where my bus stop, because everything looks different and everything looks the same. Everything
That's
looks different from the daytime, but different. But I can't recognize anything. I had no landmarks. I had no language to figure out where I was going, and I was and I think and no one spoke English either. So it was quite an experience. And, that taught me that if I can do that, I can really do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can figure out Chinese bus system without speaking Chinese at night, you're doing well.
Yeah.
You can overcome anything.
Yeah. So that's why I've never been afraid in terms of moving to a new place.
And you were teaching the whole time?
Yeah. Teaching at a university.
Teaching English or teaching at a university? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Teaching English at university.
Is it correct to say you're a professor by trade or a teacher by trade, or
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had many professions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I did work at university in Taiwan, in Oman, and in the UAE. I worked in education. I was an education consultant, and I guess my sort of pivot into what I'm doing now was when I worked my second job in the UAE was at a university. My first job was an education consultant supporting the education reform of the Emirate in Abu Dhabi, and then I worked at a university, which was more. I prefer working with sort of that age group. And one of my colleagues asked me to write about the Arab Spring. He says, choose any country. This is 2011. Lorraine, choose any country. And I thought, well, I want to write about Syria because I love Syria. And at that time, Tunisia and Egypt were the big countries which everyone was looking at for the Arab Spring. And I chose Syria, which was like just starting. And no one perceived the Syria crisis would turn into the big one because Syria was stable. And
this is 2011. So at that, refresh my memory on the timeline. So 2011, Syria stable for the most part? Or?
The Arab Spring started in March 2011 in Syria.
Okay.
But everyone expected it to be, to end very quickly because the Assad regime was, quite predominant. I don't want to talk politics, but no one expected it to last as long, to escalate, especially since the one in Tunisia sort of ended very quickly. So that was what was expected for the Syrian crisis. So it was unlucky that I chose to write about Syria because that was the one that turned into what we have now. And so I wrote a few academic articles about that, education and women, political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things escalated, I started to, see what was happening. And then I went back to the UK for a year and I came back to Abu Dhabi. And then this is 2016 when I came back, I think. The Arab Spring was maybe 2015. The Arab Spring was completely escalating, and people were turning in up in the shores of Europe. And I remember saying to my husband at the time, I said, "Oh my gosh, what can we do? I want to adopt a Syrian family." And he's like, "Oh my God, you're crazy." And this is, how I thought, no, I have to do something. Like, what can I do? And Literally a week later, I met someone who became my boss. He was the former UK ambassador to Lebanon, and he worked for an international NGO that supported education for Syrian refugees. So I was a researcher looking at the private sector engagement, but doing partnerships and research and everything. So that's how my sort of career path towards supporting refugees really became established. So I still do academic stuff, but I sort of do more policy stuff now, which is much more fulfilling.
I see. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I love is how, like, this is a common theme I've noticed from talking to people on this show and my experiences as well, is like most people didn't have like a path planned out that they thought they would follow to get to where they are. And somehow traveling, moving abroad, testing out new cultures, pushing those limits was a major contributor to getting to this place of like where you really feel like you've come into your own a little bit. You're living a life that you really enjoy. You're doing work that you really enjoy. And like, had you not taken that teaching job in Taiwan, perhaps you would never have ended up in the Middle East supporting refugees. These things are all connected. And I think it's really fun and interesting to think about.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I wanted to come to the Middle East was in my early 20s, when I finished university. I went to Israel and Egypt. And when I was in Egypt, we drove to the Sinai and I saw those mountains and I thought, oh my God, I love this. I fell in love with the Middle East by going to Egypt. And then and a long time, it took me years after to find a way back. And so I was pregnant with my first child when I moved to Oman. I was like 8 months pregnant when I moved to Oman. Crazy, to this town.
You are not afraid of challenges.
To this town that didn't even have a proper supermarket. We used to shop in the souk, which is like the markets. Wow. So it was, and women were still washing their clothes in the falaj, which is like the sort of water channels in the back of the village where we lived. That's where I moved to, but I loved it. It was like otherworldly.
Were you like the only expat there? Were there any other?
No, the university there was hiring Westerners to teach. So yeah. So a bit, but probably only 50 non. Yeah.
It's a small number. Yeah.
Everyone knew everyone, but then it sort of grew. I mean, now it's different. But when we moved there, like we shopped in the market. People, people lived the way they lived probably 100 years ago. I mean, it was amazing.
What an experience.
And then from there, we had holidays throughout the Middle East. From there, we went to Syria, and I fell in love with Syria. And that's why when I was asked to write about the Arab Spring, I chose Syria. I thought, oh my goodness, I love Syria. I've been there, I love the people. It's fascinating. That's why I want to write about Syria. And again, because I traveled there, that's what made me compelled to write about it for that academic articles.
So interesting. And then stepping stones and here you are today. It's you've been in the UAE now for how many years?
Since 2008.
So, in the UAE since 2008. Okay, I was thinking the Middle East as a whole. Wow. So that's a good bit of time. Does it feel like home now, or do you still feel like a foreigner there, or some mix of the two?
I mean, everyone is a foreigner here, so it's it feels like home. But I know that my time is coming. As I said, my oldest son went to the UK when he's living with his father, and it's been hard for me because I miss him, and COVID hasn't helped. Hard to see him. Yeah. So I want us to move myself and my younger son to move closer, even if he decides not to live with us, to stay living with his father. But we need to be closer to him. Yeah. So I will.
That plays a big factor in whether or not a place can feel like home is your family and the close connections there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So otherwise, though, you feel very comfortable in the UAE.
Yeah, completely.
Like the life in Abu Dhabi and.
Yeah. It's easy. I've got friends. There's the interesting people, but also I've got lots of friends like you who are virtual. So I have a bit of both. I think I have the best of both worlds. There's some interesting people here, but also the interesting people like you who I've met virtually, who I haven't met in person. Oh yeah, I hope we will meet in person one day. But I also have these relationships which I love as well.
Yeah. We're not really, the world is becoming flatter. It's so easy to have actual real connections and relationships and maintain your closest ones despite the distance, which is a great thing, I think.
Completely. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. My co-founder and I met online. It sounds like a date. We met online. And we knew as after our first conversation, we had this instant connection and we knew we'd do something together. So by the time I registered NAML, I hadn't met her in person, but we'd speak like every week, sometimes more often than that, and certainly closer to when we were registering. And I was filling out the registration forms. I'm like, and I had to put all our details. And I tried to message her, but I couldn't get in touch with her. I'm like, God, I just have to figure it out. So like date of birth, Facebook.
Yeah.
Where she, place of birth. I thought, okay, I'm assuming it's where she has on Facebook as a home. So I put that. Father's first name. I'm like, oh my God. So I just put John. I'm thinking, right, John.
And must be John.
Yes. And then I spoke to her and I said, listen, I was filling out these, these are what I put. And I put your father's first name was John. She said, that is my father's first name.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
This was all meant to be.
It was all meant to be. And then when we met in person in Edinburgh, September 2019, it's probably a year and a half after we first met online, it was like meeting an old friend, meeting like a best friend. And like now, we have an amazing connection. I mean, she's a lot more silent in the organization, but now that we're picking up, she's sort of doing more behind the scenes sort of company stuff. But I love the fact that I didn't know her, but meet her face to face, and we have this thing together.
Yeah. It's totally doable now. It's not really even much of a barrier, it seems. We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you in partnership with my friends over at Lamont & Co. If you're planning a retreat, offsite, or group gathering of any kind this year, I highly suggest tapping into their extensive knowledge and experience to help you find the best possible venue for your event. I work with Kim, who has become my trusted advisor when it comes to planning any event around the world, and she's literally saved me hundreds of hours of work and has located venues I never would have found on my own. She even provides me with budget breakdowns and cost estimates for each location I'm interested in and negotiates contract terms on my behalf. All for free. If it sounds too good to be true, I thought the exact same thing at first, but I can assure you this is the real deal. Lamont is paid by the venues, not by you. So there's no cost, risk, or obligation here. So do yourself a favor and contact Lamont via the link in the show notes when you're planning your next group, retreat, offsite, or gathering. Before we dive back into the rest of the interview, I have a small favor to ask of the audience. If you are enjoying this episode and getting some value out of it, then please follow these very simple instructions. Step 1, pick up your phone. I'll give you a second. Step 2, leave a 5-star review for About Abroad. That's it. That's all I'm asking. It takes about 2 seconds. Of course, it is completely free to you, and it is the best possible way to support myself, the show, and everyone working on About Abroad behind the scenes. The funny thing is that there are thousands of people tuning into this show every single week, but we are very likely to only get a few reviews by industry standards, and reviews are the most impactful way that you can show support for the show. So if you have the time, please do so. And either way, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. When you think about life in Abu Dhabi versus moving back to perhaps the UK, Europe, what will be some of the things that you will miss most about the Middle East? And you can take this however, Abu Dhabi, UAE, Middle East, whatever, versus Europe. And then also, what are some of the things you're really perhaps looking forward to? Of course, time with your son, but as far as like the lifestyle, the city, for someone that might be considering a move to Middle East, to the UAE, this could give them some insight into what life is, what some of the trade-offs are, pros and cons.
Yeah, I mean, the UAE it's nice weather most except the summer. Beautiful running outside. I mean, it's beautiful. It's clean. It's safe. For me, I love the safety, but I also love the chaos. I mean, it's probably Abu Dhabi less so than other places in the Middle East, but I love the chaoticness and you don't know what's going to happen. And this happens less to me now because I know it so well, and and it happened much more in Oman. Like, it's unpredictable, and I love the unpredictability about it. I love that. You just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know, and I love that. What I miss about Europe: friends, family.
Yeah.
And I mean, life's easy here, less easy there. So I'm looking forward to.
How so?
Well, I'm not very good with rules. I don't think that for me, I think that for other people. So here I can navigate my space with that in mind. In Europe, I have to be more conscious of it. And, I still hope that I can, keep on thinking that way, but I probably have to be more conscious of it there than,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you feel more, actually more free and more like open in the UAE than you feel like you will in Europe?
Probably not. I mean, I am aware of where I live in terms of what I can say and how I navigate my space. So in terms of, this is the Middle East, and we all know the political issues here.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes we have to be cautious of what we say, but I like that. Oh my gosh, am I going to get, am I going to get deported because, for doing these, am I going to get
the
banned?
risk. It's the risky life a little bit. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. So I misunderstood. I thought you were saying the opposite, that when you get back to Europe, you'll have to mind yourself a little bit more. But what you're saying is that you have to mind yourself a little bit more in the Middle East, but you sort of like that, like it's living life on the edge a little bit.
Yeah, especially as an academic, and the kind of work that I used to do, which I don't do anymore. That was like, yeah, quite on the edge.
Yeah.
But now, even the refugee stuff is kind of sensitive, but less so than my previous line of research.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting, because it seems like on the surface, like, who could have any issues with wanting to help refugees? But if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, you can see how there's political and all sorts of different aspects to that from different countries, lots of borders sharings and things like this. So yeah. So when you first came to the Middle East, you've been there quite a while now. So how would you say it's changed? I have the impression dramatically, but what's your vantage point from having been there for a while now?
So considering I live in the Gulf, which is sort of oil rich, that's how the economy is financed. And with the price of oil decreasing significantly, we're beginning to feel the economic impacts of that, obviously on top of COVID, but even before COVID, the prices of oil have been decreasing. So, people, for a lot of expats who come here, they come on massive packages. There's a lot less of that. People are much more coming here less just for the money, because the money isn't necessarily as amazing as it used to be. It's still good, but not as amazing as it used to be. And what I find is, and this is particularly a UAE thing, the people that come here don't come to live in the Middle East. They come to earn the money. And I've always been slightly uncomfortable with that, because yes, I mean, I do need money to live, but I really want to understand the place, and that's why my initial research was on the UAE. So I do have a good understanding. I have a pretty good understanding, because that's what I've researched about the place, about the culture, society, politics, that sort of thing. And I am interested in it. And for me, it sort of helps me navigate the space. So I guess what's changed is the type of people who are coming, and the people who are staying are becoming invested. And when I say invested, I mean, emotionally in the place.
Yeah.
So
not just there to take advantage of the income or live a certain lifestyle completely secluded from the locals.
Exactly. Which, I mean, that still happens.
Yeah, sure.
But I hope less and less. I mean, it's hard to say, because I guess I've been locked in my apartment for 9 months, so it's hard to say. But yeah, I think that definitely is the case. People are more interested in engaging with the place.
Yeah. That people are at this point, you feel like, more than in the past. Yeah. I lived in a place for a little while. I won't say where, because I think it kind of has like a little bit of a stereotype now, and I don't want to paint it badly, but I was a little bit disgusted with, like, there seemed to be a big separation between like the expats and the locals, and the expats that were there were really just trying to take advantage of like a low cost of living, and didn't really want to have anything to do with the locals, wanted to have their own restaurants, not learn the language, things like this. And I just always was a little bit like
uncomfortable.
it's a little bit uncomfortable. Like, why are we even here if we're just
Yeah.
if we're not going to mingle with the locals and get to know the culture, it's half the fun. It's if not
Yeah.
more. So
Me too. I feel exactly the same. And that's kind of why I loved living in Taiwan, because there you had no choice. The culture, it was your life. There was no
yeah,
option. And same for Oman. In the UAE, it's more difficult. So even, even you have to make a much bigger effort to really engage with it because it's so Western. But
yeah,
you can. And that's why if I have to live, I mean, I'll probably have to watch Europe because of, because of my, my kids. But if I have to live somewhere else that's non-Europe, I want to be somewhere where it's completely different, and I want to sort of get in there and
yeah. That
get in
get
there.
like knee deep in the culture of the
Yeah,
place where you're living. Yeah.
yeah.
So it'd be correct to say that I have the impression, I've not been to the UAE, but especially in a place like Abu Dhabi, it's very multicultural. It's
Oh yeah,
very almost
amazing.
like
Yeah,
cosmopolitan.
yes.
It's not like you don't feel when you're walking down the street, it's not like it's obvious that you are a
No,
non-local.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. No, I mean,
But
yeah,
in Oman, that was the case. In Oman, it sounds like that was more the case where
yeah,
you stood out a little bit more.
yeah. And it's interesting. I stood a bit more because I looked like them, but I sounded different. I dressed differently. So it was a
Yeah.
really interesting for me. And I remember when I was having my second child in Oman, he was born very early in the morning, and I went to the hospital, and I think, wearing the hospital gown, and I had my hair tied up in a bun. And the doctor thought I was local. And she said to me, "Where's your scarf? Why isn't your hair covered?" And I said to her, "What are you talking about?" And she says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, madame." When she heard me, she realized I was, because I looked like them. So it was a really interesting, really
Yeah.
interesting being there.
I think it's a question that has to be asked. So, or a point just to be made. So you did not feel like you didn't have to wear a hijab or
Not
something.
at
You
all.
don't feel obligated
No, no,
in
no.
throughout. Is that throughout the? I know it's painting a
Well,
very broad stroke, but generally, is that your
yeah.
experience?
I mean, certainly covering your hair, you don't have to. I always feel I have to. I mean, but the UA is different, and I don't really bother about what I wear, but I try to be conservative. Like
Yeah.
like in Oman, definitely conservative. In the UAE, less so. And when I travel to Jordan, you have to be aware of where you are and
Yeah.
sort of what people are doing, and you don't want to stand out. And I remember being when I was in Oman, and we lived in a pretty conservative place, and going to the hotel where we used the pool and the gym, and seeing foreigners wearing like short shorts, and I thought, oh my god, who didn't advise them?
Yeah.
You know,
Somebody needs to tell them. Yeah.
the race tell them you can't wear that. And
Yeah.
of course, they wanted to right, they wouldn't say anything, but I'm like, come on, look at where you are.
Yeah. I know some people will take like I have the impression some people take some offense to this, and I can understand the that side of the coin. On the other hand, I think like you do have to respect like local traditions when you go somewhere. I mean, even here in Spain or throughout Europe, if we walked into my wife and I to a cathedral one time to look around, and she was wearing like a tank top or something, and they said,
Yeah, cover.
can you please cover up your shoulders? And she
Mm-hmm.
didn't take any offense to that. Like, oh yeah, that's the kind of the norm here, the rules here. I
Yeah,
understand, and
yeah,
you move along.
yeah. But also we expect people when they come to the West to adopt
Right.
Western, expect them to speak English. So
Exactly.
when we live somewhere, we really need to understand that it's not the same as where we live. And, if I lived in Brazil, I'd be completely dressed differently. I'd be like wearing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You could
Like
do
they
that in
do.
Brazil.
Exactly. But you can't do that here. And you just have to realize it's where you are. And I think that's a beauty about traveling. You become conscious of the culture and the people. And, I think you definitely gain much more respect when you act appropriately.
Yeah.
You gain
Yeah.
friends.
That's how you're going to get knee deep into the culture and perhaps be invited over for tea at a local house or
Yeah,
something, like these are, and
yeah,
that'll be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, I think you have to adapt a little bit. And
yeah, yeah, definitely.
yeah, so one thing I like to get into a little bit. It's not necessarily the most exciting and fun part, but it's the very practical part of this show, is talking about the sort of the process of moving to a place like let's talk about the UAE in particular, from a visa standpoint, just what is the process like for you? You can speak specifically about your background and coming from where you're from, but sort of generally speaking, I mean, is it a place that's very difficult to get into, or is it open? What are your thoughts here?
Well, that's changing. It's changing a lot. So there's this new freelance visa for Dubai, which is like, you could just like, people come, to work in Europe, all these places which allow people to work freelancers. Dubai has it. It's quite expensive to live here, so you have to be really cautious of the difference in wages. But the UAE are trying really hard to attract people. So it is getting much easier to get visas. There's a freelance visa. There's the remote work thing, so you can work for a company, work remotely in Dubai. So it is changing a lot. I mean, my advice is just look very carefully, but be conscious of the cost of living.
Yeah. Would you compare the cost of living to a place like London, or something along those lines? So we're talking one of the more expensive places. I mean, Hong Kong, London, New York, San Francisco. These are expensive places to live.
But there are ways to live cheaply, but it is pretty expensive. The big things, rent and school, are the big things. School
is always private, or just generally you want to use private as an expat, or?
Well, because I mean, it's an Arab country, so schools are in Arabic.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
So if you want to send you can send your kids. There's probably, I imagine there's tons of options
Tons.
Okay.
Tons.
Yeah.
But expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because you have, I mean, as you mentioned, you have all these expats there. They get brought there with big packages.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So be conscious of that.
And then, so when you arrived, like in your case, were you brought to the UAE via a job and okay? So that was your path.
Yes, and back when I did in 2008, that was the only way. Okay. But now things have changed, and they're trying to attract talent and young talent entrepreneurs. But when I came, that was the only way, and it was much more difficult then than it is now.
So if somebody wanted to move there, their best path right now, if their company isn't going to bring them there, is to look up the remote work or freelance visas for
I'd say so,
for the UAE, and see if that would apply to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. It was announced. I'm not sure if it's been made law yet, but it will happen.
Yeah.
Even if it hasn't, but because it's been passed as a law.
Interesting. Okay, and then you may not. This is reaching back a little bit, but in Oman, if somebody was interested in moving there, do you recall what that process was like?
Oh, much like the UAE was when I first came. It's really tied to jobs, and a lot of these countries are trying to nationalize their workforce, so trying to have fewer and fewer foreigners. I don't know if they have anything like the freelance visas or that. I don't know, but I doubt it, because the one's a lot more conservative, and
Yeah.
But certainly,
they're trying to provide jobs for their people.
Yeah. But if you could get there, I highly recommend it. If you could find a way there, it's the most amazing. It's magic. It's magical.
What's magical about it? I can see and hear in your voice that it's such a special place for you. So I mean, and it's not a place that pops up on people's radar very often. That may be part of the charm of it for you, but I would love to hear a little bit more about what makes it so magical for you.
I mean, the people are wonderful, generous, kind. It's beautiful. The mountains, and not green mountains, brown mountains, beautiful rocky mountains. The culture, I don't know. It's just, it is like stepping back in time.
Yeah.
It really
deep,
is.
rich history and culture, and
and just interesting, very, very interesting.
Where would you live if you were going to give give the Middle East another shot and say, my next chapter is going to be here? Where might that be?
If there weren't a war in Syria, I would love to live in Syria.
Yeah.
Istanbul.
Oh.
Love Istanbul, but I couldn't live there all the time. I mean, it's beautiful, it's crazy, it's chaotic, but I love that city.
Would you say it's more chaotic than Abu Dhabi?
Oh yeah, oh my,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Istanbul is like, it's a massive city,
Yeah. It's
you know,
huge.
and I love cities on you know, on the sea. I love cities on the water. It's beautiful. I love the Bosphorus and the boats back and forth. Chaotic though. I like
These are
Jordan.
some good ones.
I really like Jordan. I like Jordan a lot. So I would
Where in Jordan? Anywhere in particular in
Amman,
Jordan?
Amman.
Amman. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I like it, and we have a project there, so I have good reason. Well, you know, COVID dependent, have good reasons to go to Jordan. Yeah.
Excellent. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. I mean, the Middle East is amazing. It's really special. Lots of cool places. Yeah, I mean, I recommend people to come. It's chaos, interesting, fun, wonderful people.
Sounds wonderful. You've got me sold.
You
I
have
need
to come.
to. It's a part of the world that I am yet to spend any time in, and but I love talking with people who have experienced it, can share a little bit more of what life's like there and the path to getting there. And
Yeah.
so your background has been really helpful for me, and I hope for some listeners. So we'll I've kept you long enough. We can wrap this up here pretty soon. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask you a couple quick questions. Give me the first thoughts that come to
Yeah.
your mind, and we'll see what comes of it, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, what has been the most exciting thing that's happened in the last year for the NAML project?
Cambridge, everything. Cambridge, MIT, collaboration, our project in Jordan. Like, it's been an amazing year of hard work, surprises. I mean, I feel, I feel really pleased with how it's gone. Like, everything has been amazing about it. Everything. I can't pinpoint one thing. Yeah, I'm just really happy, and I've worked really hard, but I've had some really good luck. But I think now my connections and now becoming harder work, not luck.
Yeah, that's exciting to watch unfold from my standpoint too. What would be the number one piece of advice you would give to a expat moving to Abu Dhabi tomorrow?
Look below the surface. Don't look at the superficiality. Dig deeper. There's a lot more than the surface. Dig deeper. Get to really know it. Don't go to the big flashy hotels, malls. Dig deeper. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. Find it.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of imagining. When I imagined going there, I think like I would love to get below the surface and get into that.
It's pretty amazing below. It's pretty cool below the surface.
Excellent. And then if someone were to move to Oman, what would you, the same piece of advice, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give them? Like, okay, you've arrived. What would you tell them?
Don't be afraid, because it's different, very different.
Get below the surface again.
Yes. Get below the surface. Excellent. So
perfect.
That's what I would say.
Excellent. All right. Yeah. Great. That is all very helpful. And again, always fun catching up with you. I learned a lot, and I hope that the listeners did as well. So thank you for your time so much, Lorraine. We really appreciate it.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much. And as I said to you, I can't say no to you. You've been amazing. You've been amazing to me. I can't ever say no to you.
Well, I will keep that in mind for season 2. Okay.
Yes, season 2 could be maybe where I'm living somewhere else. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows where I'll be next? I
know. That's the exciting thing. All the options at your fingertips.
Inshallah, as we say in Arabic.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Lorraine.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. You can visit aboutabroad.com to get our latest updates and listen to past episodes, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, really anywhere you get your podcasts. On that note, if you enjoyed the show, feel free to subscribe, and if inclined, leave a few stars and a review. It's truly, truly appreciated and will help more wanderers just like you find us. Until the next time, adios from España.